Welcome to the Believe Again podcast, where we hope to inspire you to live an enjoyable, meaningful Christianity through delivering real, raw, and refreshing stories. I'm your host, Josh Robery, and on today's episode, we will have part 2 of my conversation with Aaron Vogel. If you haven't heard part 1, go back and listen to it. Aaron will talk about his journey working as a youth pastor, having to transition into a part-time role where he's part-time in the marketplace, part-time in the church, and eventually his transition full-time into being a business owner and making a difference for the kingdom of God in the marketplace. I know you'll really enjoy it. You don't have to have listened to it to enjoy this one. You can just jump right in and hear what Aaron has to say today. If you're leading a growing organization, I know you will get a lot out of this. If you're a pastor and you're wondering, hey, how can I help business leaders in my church connect to their potential to make a difference in the kingdom of God? You'll want to listen to this. If you're in the marketplace and you're wondering how to use your unique position in the marketplace to make a difference, you'll learn a lot from hearing Aaron's story. And so we're going to jump right into it. Thank you for joining us today. You know, when you started District, you actually started with this kind of umbrella organization, I guess, is a way to call it, is Turn Change. And you had some really great vision behind that. I'd love for everyone listening to this podcast to hear kind of how you're able to make a difference for the church and really, without even carrying the label as the church, but make I guess a better way of saying it is make a difference for the kingdom of God through a business outside of the four walls of the church.
Yeah. So 2.5 years or so before we launched our first endeavor, we came up with what became the LLC of the business, but really was the mission of the business, which we call Turn Change, turn profits, change lives. So we wanted to be emphatic about both and like, hey, this is the mission. We're here to, another way to say turn profits would be, we want to last, right? We don't want to be something that's quick and kind of come into business and out of business. And restaurants, 80% of restaurants in the first 5 years fail. And then after that, in the next 5 years, so year 10, 80% of the 20 that are left fail. And so we knew going in, like, man, we have to get to a decade of service in our communities, we're going to be in the 5th percentile. And our vision was always to do it for a long time. So turning profits was something that we knew we had to have at the forefront so that we could last. And then changing lives. And we talk about turning profits as a vessel to change lives, right? So turning profits and money is not it's not the end. It is the means to the end, which of greater importance would be the fact that businesses have daily, they're impacting people in a significant way, and they're changing their lives in a significant way. And we wanted to be a company that was just like, first and foremost, like, let's remind ourselves at the door every time, let's name ourselves our mission, right? And so that came well before District. It never was about District for us. The name of our primary restaurant that we're building is District Donut Sliders Brew. And so it never was about coffee and donuts and sliders and burgers and salads and, good design and good music and things like that. But rather it was always about figuring out how to be a company that lasts so that we can make the most impact on people in the cities that we're around. Right. And so that's been, where we've gone and what our effort has been. And we now have 7 District locations. We also have a plant-based restaurant or a vegan restaurant in the city of New Orleans. And then the coffee roastery. So it really has been the guiding light. And I'm thankful that God gave me the opportunity to work in a church that is, the church is driven by the mission of God. And I understood how to align under a bigger picture of what God is doing, in that he's mobilizing a people to move in a particular direction. And obviously the church is not built to be on missions singularly. I don't think that's the case. I think that God has gathered his people have them engage him and be impacted and formed and reformed, transformed by him. And then an expression of that change, obviously, as God is at the center, obviously, is the mission that he is tending to on this earth. But having that under my belt and then coming into being an entrepreneur and saying like, okay, well, let me ask the same question. Like, what's the point? Why do we gather? Like, what's the point of this gathering? And so quickly early on, I realized there was nothing sacred about the church and secular about the marketplace. And those are words that I grew up with. But I understood before I became an entrepreneur, particularly by working in restaurants, that this is not secular work filled with secular people. These are the people that God is reaching. There's nothing secular about who God is reaching. And these people are far from God oftentimes. But this is for the church, like this is part of the purpose of the gathering of the church. It's not the only purpose, but part of the purpose is to be on mission, to tell these people the good news of Jesus Christ. And so I quickly found within myself, like, oh, this is it. Like, this is the sacred work, right? Like, this is the thing that matters. I don't know that I could do anything more significant than this, that I'm participating and employing all of these people by writing a schedule in advance, and not the day before a shift rolls out, they finally get their schedule, but rather they can be served well by projecting their next 2 weeks, by doing something like that, or having a paycheck consistently there, or creating an environment where people could walk in and in a restaurant culture, it can be tough, but rather one that's encouraging, one that's celebratory. And when correction happens and instruction happens, it's in a way that is very direct, and it's not passive, and it's not sarcastic. It's at a table. It's thoughtful. It's patient. Like, this is the work of God in the world, right? And so I began to see my work not when I was early, before I was an entrepreneur, I understood like this work was sacred work and special work and a privilege to be able to do this type of work. And every time we open a new restaurant, it's another gathering of people where we can have leaders who go in there and they can spend time with those guys and gals, and they can teach them about what is like not just a hard skill, which is excellent, but in addition to that, like what it's like to work in a space where they make mistakes and it's okay. And we pick them back up and we say, don't make it again, but we don't reject you, we accept you. And they do it again, and we do the same thing, and we work through their struggles and their perception about what restaurants are, particularly in the city of New Orleans. It's a unique environment for restaurants, and it carries a certain kind of culture and background. And it's not always one that people are proud of. A lot of times parents are not thinking like, man, I just hope my kids grow up and get in the restaurant business, right? That's not necessarily the goal for people. And so we want to be a space where people can, heads up family decisions, be like, nah, like this is good. This is good work. It's meaningful work. This is work that matters, to be able to put people in a space where they are served, where hospitality is the purpose. It's the point, to change their lives in a positive way, as if they're coming into our home to be served and to take care of them and to show them love and acceptance and kindness and all the things that we get to do. I mean, man, what a dream to be able to do that kind of work and to be able to do it with people, side by side. It's really, I am grateful for the transition that God has given me. And it's helped me to reshape how sacred the work is in the marketplace. And whether it be healthcare or government or education, anything anyone does, hospitality, it is truly, truly important work. And it's what most people do, right? There are few people who have the great privilege of preaching the gospel once a week to God's gathered people. And what a privilege that is, but that is not the story of most people. And so I think what I've learned, should God put me in an opportunity to serve people in a local church again as a pastor, vocationally, man, I am so grateful that I'll have the opportunity to have that perspective of where these people, like what they do. Like the most important thing that they do isn't necessarily that they come 2 or 3 times a week, or when I open the doors, like this is what matters and this is where you need to be. And if you're not here, then, and why, and all these sorts of things. But to compel people on mission, like God is bringing you here to equip you. to make you ready, to serve you, to encourage you, and then so that you can be people who go out and are strong in your faith and can stand in the middle of difficulty, which there is a lot of difficulty in the marketplace where there's a lot of things in our culture that are going on right now that make it tough, man. And so church is for people to be equipped to do that good work in the marketplace. And I hope that one day I can have that perspective and maintain it. Should God give me the opportunity to do that again vocationally, which I would be joyed to do. But in the meantime, I'm equally as joyed to continue doing this work because I know this is work that really, really matters.
Yeah. And, I think you married those two things so well with the church. It's not just sacred. And I think we could make it over sacred in a sense that, I'm getting a paycheck from a church, so I'm in ministry, but you may not actually be doing ministry, where you could be getting a paycheck that's not from a church, but you could be much more effective at doing ministry, fulfilling the Great Commission. And, you've been a real great example to me of that. And I remember when you guys opened the first location in district, you were prepared to work, crazy hours for the next few years of your life, but it turned out to be a hit right away. And I think there's a lot of people that have dreams in their heart that maybe they're scared to pursue. And I think, what you guys did might inspire them a little bit. What was that like whenever you opened the doors in the first month or so, you realized, wait a second, we're going to be able to hire people. I'm going to be able to extend a paycheck to someone else and this thing's going to work. What was that like for you guys?
Yeah, it was overwhelming for sure. The hours, we're a 3-day part concept. So 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're open till 10 initially. And we have people in the building starting at 4 a.m. And so it's like a 21 hour operation, 7 days a week. So it was a ton. I didn't process it as you just explained so much about how this is going to impact people. It was really turn at the time, if you will, keeping with the kind of the LLC. It was really like, we better blow people away. We have to create a memory that lasts and something that they want to come back to. It was, as anything worthy of building, it's going to cost more. It's going to take longer, all of the things that you anticipate. It's only worse. I saw my kids when they came to see me at the restaurant. I didn't see them at the house. And those first 90 days were just really, really, they were tough, man. They put a tremendous amount of pressure on my wife to be able to manage everything largely independently in my home. And that's hard. That's never the goal. Obviously it was temporary at the time. But when we turned that corner to where we had people put in place to be able to lead in those environments, man, it got fun, right? You pick your head up and you're like, wow, people like this. You're just working hard. You're grinding every single day. You're producing, and that's what you're doing. You're producing, right? You are a vessel of production. And when you're doing that, you can't appreciate things as much as you maybe could otherwise if you were kind of sitting back and participating just by observing. So I think we built something special because we went hard in the beginning and people, for whatever reason, they connected with it. And then empowering other people to kind of lead that themselves. And so we quickly extracted, which was a good part of our story, that we, as quickly as we could, we kind of got out of it, set people up and put them in place to lead those places. And thankfully, several of those people are still with us today, leading in different environments. And so, yeah, now looking 8 years in, it is very special to know, some of the greatest memories I have are earlier years. We're close to a couple of universities in New Orleans, and these students would come and work with us, and their parents would come in, 3, 6, 9 months in from out of town, and they would come visit the restaurant for the first time. And they would, you got your 19-year-old daughter working on Magazine Street in New Orleans, and you've heard all about New Orleans and it's different and is it safe and all this stuff. And then you, of course, what restaurants are like a little bit. They have somewhat of a bad reputation for sure in some ways, in terms of employment. And what a joy to be able to have those parents, you give them a big hug and say like, thank you so much for letting your daughter or your son work with us. Like, just so you know, like, this is our effort. This is what we're trying to do. And man, they do a great job. Golly, they're representing you well. And they're making the city more friendly to be in, to work in, and tourists who come here as a result of their work. So stuff like that, where you realize like you're making an impact on these students or these kids and their parents, and you're swiveling their parents' head around, and they're saying like, okay, I now know, at least I can check that box, and my daughter or my son is safe where they work, right? And I think, especially like parents who are, sending their kids far ways away, they're concerned about those types of things. They want to know that they're safe and taken care of. And that's like, we just planted another restaurant that's around 2 universities. And it's the same thing. It's like, what a super neat chance we have to be able to create a space for young people to come to be served, not just to make money, but to be served, to be taught, coached, instructed on what a healthy work environment could be, right? And so some of these people are going to be in very different fields in the future. My hope has always been that they would reflect back on their district or turn change experience and say to themselves like, man, when I was 20, I was shaped as to how I should be thinking about people who are going to come into my workplace. How to serve the community. It's not just about making money, but it's, man, I should be here to make a difference, make a change in these people's lives. And again, when they come to me and they say, hey, you know what, one day I actually want to be an entrepreneur, and I don't know how far away that is. I want to do a restaurant, or I want to do a firm, or I want to do a this or that. And then to fan their flame and say like, let me know how I can help. Like, I would love to be a part of that process. How biblical is that? And how holy and sacred is that we could be those types of people? So yeah, now, I mean, I have my head up a little bit more, and I get to see that type of impact. And it's the same as spiritual formation in the sense that you get to be a part of that process and how fulfilling that process is. And then ultimately you realize God has gifted me to do these things. And he has gifted me to these people who are either near him or far from him. Equally, he has gifted me to serve those people well in the time that he has given them to be around me and with me, not to build my thing, but to build this thing. And that's special. And so, yeah, I love being able to do both of them. And I love this season that I'm in now, where I do have my head up a bit.
Well, I remember whenever Whole Foods wanted to carry y'all's donuts, and I thought, man, Aaron's a big deal. Whole Foods wants his donuts, and they're like, I told everyone I knew, my friend, they sell his donuts at Whole Foods. I don't know if you heard of Aaron Vogel. He's kind of big deal in New Orleans. But y'all did have some celebrities come through. Do you remember the first celebrity that you saw?
First, I'll tell you, like the first memorable one. I don't know the first one actually. Maybe this was the first one, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was like a really, really like memorable experience, because I got to take care of him at the register. I got to, unfortunately, we didn't have decaf espresso. We don't serve decaf espresso. But
when he left, did he say, "I'll be back"? No,
he did not. But I wish he would have said that. But he asked for decaf. His assistant, he walked away. I told his assistant, like, hey, we don't have decaf. He goes, just give him regular. So like, fun stuff like that, where I got to mess with his nap that day, no doubt. When Miley Cyrus was at her Wrecking Ball climax, she came through. That was a big, fun experience. Had some people from The Office, which was a TV show that we all loved, of course. And everyone knows
The Office now. It's bigger now than ever.
Right. I know. And at the time when
who was it from The Office?
Daryl came in. Yeah. And it was just like, that was like, that's, you made it if Daryl's coming into the shop. We've had a ton. Recently we had John Malkovich, which if you tell this to people like 25 and under, they don't know who John Malkovich is, but like he's one of the all-time best. My brother served him a macchiato and just shook the whole way there and apologized for being nervous when he got there. So, I mean, man, we've had a lot. There's been a few more that are in my brain, but yeah, that's been fun. That's been really neat to be able to serve people who are, you see from a distance and then up close, and what a cool opportunity.
Well, you guys are innovating a lot of ways of seeing, people try to duplicate what you're doing, and, you're setting trends, and but you continue to innovate. And one of the ways that you've innovated in the last couple of years is with roasting your own coffee. So y'all were, when Stumptown was much more exclusive, you guys were one of the only Stumptown people around in Louisiana. Is that right? And
yeah, they weren't, not a lot of, I mean, they were in New Orleans, and I don't know who else was serving them. I'm sure someone, and they're on the shelves and stuff in Whole Foods. But yeah, we became friends with them. Great people, by the way. Our experience was so fun with them.
And then you decided to roast your own coffee through a several different, things happening. But you went with the name Cool Kids Coffee. You can kind of explain that a little bit and what you guys are doing with that coffee.
Yeah, Cool Kids is was like our first fun expression of turn change. And so we wanted to, figure out how to like turn the product into the vessel that actually changed lives. And so one of our visions from the beginning was like wrap our arms around everything and make it in-house. And we make all of our food. It's a scratch kitchen. We now make it at our commissary since the pandemic. And coffee was always a part of that vision for us. Like we wanted to source and roast our own. And so in 2019, we started doing that, and that's been a blast. And so we named it Cool Kids because we wanted to, partner with kid-centric nonprofits in the city. And so we wanted to, through the brand, serve the cool kids of our city, right? So partnering up with some, again, kid-centric nonprofits. Every bag we sell, we're sharing a portion of the sales with those kid-centric nonprofits. And as we grow and, move into different regions and states and things like that, like to be able to partner with other nonprofits in those cities was something that we always wanted to do. And so we wanted to name it that because like we unfortunately, like we never set out to, I say unfortunately, every time you have a vision, you want that vision to be understood and known. And when you're in the restaurant business and your vision isn't necessarily to serve it's not like the mission isn't about the donuts, sliders, and coffee. It's unfortunate that you can't tell people that story, right? And because there's so much more to it, it feels like for us, people, what they experience is like the goodness of that vision, I think, but they don't come in contact with the language of that vision. With the kind of the whole narrative or story of that vision is just never told. And so that's fine. But Cool Kids was one of those things where like, man, we could tell a story and tell people about what we think these types of spaces could be about, right? And so, serving coffee and branding it essentially with the turn change vision in mind was a ton of fun. And then, of course, so we serve it at all of our district locations. And at some point, the pandemic hit like right after we launched. And so we haven't really made any efforts to build that brand outside of all of the district locations. But at some point, we'd like to do that. I have a friend who has a cafe and we serve it there, but to kind of build that out so people could, think about this brand as being something that is like they're connected to as well, right? I thought like big vision for me, like, man, what would it be like to have Cool Kids is like the premium church coffee almost, where those churches could feel like they're purchasing this coffee that's excellent quality coffee, but really has something attached to it that they feel strongly about in serving kids in particular ways. And so like we have some vision for the future, but like for us, it just means a lot personally to be able to really get our hands around something and tell a story about that something that really reflects turn change very well. And like anything else, if you don't do something exceedingly well, people won't pay attention to it in terms of like food and bev. And so I think we've been able to accomplish something really special just with the quality of the coffee. And we have an excellent guy who roasts it, every day for us. And it's local. We source it ourselves. Just a lot of good stuff about what we're doing with Cool Kids. And I'm excited about the brand for sure.
So you don't just take care of kids with it locally, but even the families that are growing the coffee beans, this isn't, they're getting a fair wage for growing this coffee. They're not getting, 10 cents an hour to grow this coffee for you guys. Is that right?
Yeah. Part of our dream too, is to like introduce ourselves and our team to what that looks like in those other spaces. So one of our goals has always been like, man, what's it like to reach people who will never engage your community, right? Who will never, which is like basically everybody will never have district. That's like what it feels like to me. And so how do you reach those people and serve them? And so coffee is a way in which you can do that, who are, what's the missionary kind of vessel, right? That's around the world, coming from different places. And so at some point we do want to grow that brand in a way that allows us to engage those people who are producing that coffee. And you partner with good people who are producing a good product, who take care of it. It's going to be more expensive on our side. But you pay for what you get, right? I mean, it's like anything else. That we have some hopes in the future for sure for Cool Kids, even with regard to what's going on internationally.
Well, Aaron, I told you this would be much shorter than what we actually went, but this is pretty typical of all of our conversations. So it's only right that the podcast is longer than a typical episode. So I want to just tell you thank you for doing this with me, how much it means to me to have you as a friend, and to be willing to share your story like this and help me by being able to put your story out there on this podcast. It means a lot. So thank you so much. And how can people get in touch with you, follow you, see these beautiful donuts? Your Instagram account is massive because people just love seeing the donuts. How can they, and Cool Kids Coffee, how can they follow all that stuff?
Yeah, at District Donuts, DONUTS is where you can find us there. And then, of course, districtdonuts.com would be our website. Those are the two places that we're active. Cool Kids Coffee on Instagram. We have, again, the pandemic really put a harsh stop to everything we've built there. We're actually working now toward picking that back up and getting some help from the outside on what that could look like and building that brand a little bit. At Cool Kids Coffee, coolkidscoffee.com as well is our website there. For the last few years, and I think part of this is just the nature of the work I'm in, I've just kind of disconnected from social on my own level. So there's no space that I live really. You can go check out some photos from like probably 2016, 17 or 18. I don't know. But aside from that, man, I just, I haven't really made much effort in that regard right now. So but as far as the business goes, and then New Orleans, Las Vegas, Jackson, Mississippi. And then kind of regionally, we have a couple more outside of the city of New Orleans. That's where you can find all of our restaurants right now.
And I'm very excited that Aaron has decided to sponsor the podcast by giving each guest a bag of Cool Kids Coffee. So Aaron, you're our first official sponsor. Thank you so much. What a cool treat that we get to give this coffee away.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to give myself some coffee. I cannot wait to taste it. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah. And so I know you just like to grind it up through an electric grinder and just dump it in the drip coffee, right?
No way, dude. Hand grind
every time. This guy.
Yeah, man. I don't have an electric grinder at the house. You got a hand grind. It's about the tradition, man. Spend 3 minutes and you're just smelling it the whole time. You're getting your heart rate working super early in the morning. You appreciate things you work harder at. Come on, Josh, you got to throw away all of your electronic coffee grinders to be sure.
Yes. I remember I showed you my coffee grinder and you're at my house. You're like, this is like a spice grinder. Like it's not even made for coffee. I'm like, it says coffee made on it. You're like, coffee? Throw that away. Get that out of here. Let me show you how to do it.
That's right.
Lay it out, keep the water at a certain temperature. Well, Aaron,
that's right.
You're one of a kind, man. You're special. Thank you for doing this. And thank you just for, like I said, for being a friend. And till we talk again. Have a good one.
Yeah, man. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it is absolutely impacting so many people. I hope that this platform, becomes more and more prominent. People can hear about your story more and more and what you're writing. Thank you for doing that. I know there's so many people who have had similar roads that you're walking down and you have walked down, and you're just a good kind of flag in the ground for people to say, to your comment earlier, like you don't have to deconstruct Christianity because you had a bad employment experience in a local church or because you had a bad experience in a local church, but rather you can look to the scripture. You can look to the body of Christ and be encouraged to know that, like, man, even dark in that darkness, in that depraved environment that you might have been in, God always acts with redemption. Right. And so your experience is that, man. I'm just grateful to be your friend, through this process, to walk through it with you and to be a part of it. And it's encouraging because in you, I see God's work. So thanks for doing what you're doing and keep it up, man.
Thank you. And if you want to hear more from Aaron, you can pick up my book, Believe Again, because he's in it throughout the whole book, sharing great wisdom with me. And I call him the friend who asks the tough questions, because he was always asking me tough questions and still does. And so awesome. Well, thanks again, Aaron. And see you guys next time. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation with Aaron Vogel. I love how he always challenges me in my faith. I hope he's done the same for you. And as you've learned on this podcast, Aaron has started a coffee brand called Cool Kids Coffee, that a portion of the proceeds go to nonprofits serving children in need. You can get your bag of Cool Kids Coffee at coolkidscoffee.com. I've been to the roastery. I've seen where the coffee's made. It is really world-class stuff, and I know you'll enjoy it, and you'll be making a difference as you sip on your coffee each morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where your addiction level is. So I also want to thank Yellowbox. Yellowbox.co is a place you should go if you're looking for creative design, branding, development, any of those things, or just production, consulting. They do so many crazy, awesome things. And they have a kingdom-minded team that I know you'll enjoy working with. So check out yellowbox.co for more information about Yellowbox. We're very, very grateful to have them support us in this podcast. Thank you to Yellowbox. Thank you to Cool Kids. And thank you to everyone who has checked out my book, Believe Again, Finding Faith After Losing Religion. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend, subscribe, give us a full 5-star rating or whatever the highest rating is wherever you listen to podcasts. And I hope you join us next time. See you later.